So, all right, there it is. Hello. Hey.
Hi.
Bana, thanks so much for being here.
You are muted.
There we go. Hi, how is everyone?
Hi.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to speak with you and yeah, I've been looking forward to it.
Oh, like
Thank
you,
you
like
so much for agreeing to this. I look forward to listening to you.
we both have a lot to learn, but I'm gonna let you guys stick to it, and I'm gonna just like put myself on mute here. And I think I can also actually exit, and you guys will just we're recording it, so I'll watch it later. Bana, thanks so much. We like are really I don't know, a lot to learn from you about this. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. All right.
So can we give just like maybe a brief intro so I can know a little bit about you and what like the thing is, and I can do the same thing with me so you can get more of an idea of what we all do and like what we're looking into and studying and things like that.
All right, so I'll start. My name is Nayala Khan, and I turned 17 this year, and currently I'm in 12th grade. And I'm really passionate about waste management and climate change, and that is what I plan to pursue in the future too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Bana and I live in Gainesville, Florida. I'm a master's student at the University of Florida and I study freshwater ecology. So I also look at climate change, effects on behavior in different invertebrates and smaller like aquatic organisms. And I look at how this affects their feeding behavior and what that can mean for the rest of the food web and the environment. So I do more ecology work, but I started off doing a lot of things with the recycling center in Detroit. And that's what really got me passionate about going into ecology.
Amazing.
That's nice. So were you always like very sure that you want to go into ecology, or like when you started like working with the recycling where you work right now, the recycling center, that is what got you into these things?
So I started off in undergraduate as pre-med student. So my parents, they're Lebanese, they immigrated to the US, and so they really wanted me to go into being a doctor. You probably know what that's like. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I actually just wrote an essay for a class about that whole experience. But yeah, so I started off in undergraduate doing biology major, but pre-med focus. And I immediately realized I don't want to work in a hospital. Nature and the environment is more inspirational to me. So I stuck through. I joined the recycling center. I became an employee my first year of college. And yeah, and then I was passionate about it. And then I found the field of ecology in my junior year of college. I took a course and I learned about it, and I found out that you can like I can study the things that I really care about, and it's a scientific field. And so that's when I started to pursue ecology and did research and a lot of work with that.
Yeah, I kind of had the same experience. Like, I was very much into neuroscience, and that is what I wanted to pursue. And then I read a study about how much microplastics we consume in our diet. And it said something like we consume plastic, which is as big as a credit card every week. And I just imagined a credit card, so many credit cards in my stomach, and that really scared me. So then after that, I researched a bit more, and I had a lot of ideas about what we could do. So yeah, I think that is what really encouraged me to learn more about this
Yeah,
plastic and stuff.
yeah, definitely. And especially like I'm sure it's similar for you, but like you're not in America currently, or you're in India right
No,
now?
yeah, I'm in India.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like I go to Lebanon to visit my family and Egypt, and you just see there's no water, like tap water you can drink. So people drink water bottles. So much plastic waste is consumed. I remember I was in Egypt last summer, and there was just plastic bottles everywhere in the water, dead fish. Like you just see it
Yeah,
everywhere, and even in America as well, it's very polluted as well. And so you just see that, and I thought, okay, this is, if I want to go into health, this is more impactful for health
yeah,
than that. And there's health for all living things, not just human focus. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I actually went. Okay, so in Delhi, we had this big hill, and it is made up of waste. Like it's really big,
Wow.
and it is whole waste. So our school organizes outreach programs every Christmas. So we went there, and I was walking through that hill full of waste and stuff. And I think even that really spoke to me because I saw a lot of waste, and most of it was plastic. So yeah, I was like, we need to do something about it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. So I started working with the recycling center in Detroit. I guess I can give you more of like a background of how that came about. So,
Yeah.
so there's two organizations. There's the recycling center itself called Recycle Here, and then there's a nonprofit organization part of it called Green Living Science. And so I was volunteering with them first. And so Green Living Science, what we did was we would go to elementary all the way to high school, K through 12 schools. And we would do these education programs to kids to get them excited about the environment and create a change in the behavior and the way people view the environment at an early age, towards sustainability, just teaching kids about what is a non-renewable resource, how much are you consuming, what does this look like, just getting them exposed, because typically in schools you're not learning this.
Yeah.
It maybe through the internet or the news, oh, there's pollution ever, but to see it in face, in front of you, I think that was really impactful to a lot of the kids. And so in the last 10 years, the organization has been, we've reached like 40,000 students, and it's always
Wow.
been very impactful. Yes. And the nice thing as well is that in Detroit, are you familiar with Detroit, Michigan?
Yeah, like I know the place, but nothing other than the name
Okay.
and stuff.
Yeah, so Detroit is a very impoverished city in Detroit, in the US, and there's a lot of racism has happened there, and like very the demographic is mainly immigrants and minority Black, like Latin American, Arabic, like, so there's a lot of that. And so there's a lot of budget cuts in the schools there. So that's when we would go and we would do these activities for them to have art, to have creative things, and we would bring them to the recycling center facility, make art out of bottles, out of metal cans, like paper beads, things like that, just to get them to think about not just recycling, but reducing and reusing, because that's also part of, that's the first steps, then
Yeah.
it's recycling last. So
Yeah.
it really has been impactful, and we see the kids bringing in, because we give them these little cards, they're called passport cards, and so every time they come in to recycle with their family, they get a stamp. And we would find that most of the kids were getting their parents so excited too about it. And so that really was, I think, one of the greatest part about the recycling center that I work at, because most recycling centers, there'll just be a facility where you have pick up garbage in the city, will pick it up and then just take it. And people don't have that experience of seeing what it's like for recycling, but our facility is a drop-off station. So public community outreach, through people coming in and recycling themselves and knowing where their waste is going.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so like how has your mentality changed about recycling and basically waste management from when you were a pre-med student to after you started like working with the non-profit organization or the recycling center?
So I think before, when I was younger, I didn't know exactly how much waste was being produced. I think I was a little naive. Like I knew, but I didn't know exactly how much. And the it's a good, but it's a bad situation. Like, it's been a little upsetting over the years to see what's going on with the recycling center, because the world and the government and all countries mainly, they're not prioritizing waste management. So there's always defunding we're having in the recycling center. So it's been more of like a battle, I think, to continue these abilities to do recycling. And it's like it's getting worse and worse, and we need better strategies and best management practices. But we're but the government and the cities and things like that, they're reducing the funding for the recycling center. So there needs to be more innovation than just how to process material, because basically the reason why is it's capital. So it's because there's no money coming out of recycling the products. There's a little bit of money, but if there's not that much, a city doesn't care as much, even if it's going to be going into the health of people and affecting people. They don't care as much because there's no funding. So it's been a struggle a little bit. I think at first, when I was younger, I was excited about it, but now you just see more of like the issues and the things that
Negative
need to be
side.
fixed. What's
Yeah,
that?
I said negative sides.
Yeah,
of
definitely.
the- Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so the recycling center, my boss who owns it, he what happened was Detroit never had recycling. So a lot of the areas, like I grew up 30 minutes away from Detroit, in another city, and we every day. We
Can you repeat what you just said? Because like your screen froze, so like I couldn't hear anything.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi is a little bad, but so
It's okay.
what I was saying was the recycling center in Detroit, we didn't have pickup recycling. So most of the city that I grew up in, 30 minutes away from Detroit, we had pickup recycling, part of the weekly garbage, just the bin they take it. But Detroit did not have that, and there's lots of issues with illegal dumping of waste material, hazardous material, like car tires, like all scrap metal, lots of things. And there would be just illegal dumping. So my boss, he thought, well, why not have a place where we can have people come drop off recycling. And so his dad had a old warehouse in Detroit, and so he organized it 10 years ago or 12 years ago, I believe, and eventually the city started funding it as the city's recycling center. So that's how it came about, was just someone out of nowhere was like, we need recycling. What is going on? And that was how he was able to do that.
Uh, I think it's a really good initiative. Actually, I don't think in Delhi, like in my city, even we have a recycling plant or something like that. So I think we really need to have it for plastic, actually.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah. So, like, what about the society do you observe? Like, the people you have worked with and stuff when it comes to recycling? Like, what misconceptions or maybe there's something they are not like really educated about when it comes to recycling? So, what are those things that you have observed?
Yeah, so a lot of the time, the recycling center is good. It's good that people are recycling, but like I said, it's reducing and reusing that's more important. So we have not just, because the recycling we take is like plastic, cardboard, all types of papers, metal, light bulbs, batteries, electronics, aseptic. So that's more of like the milk carton, like the paper carton kind of thing
Yeah,
for
yeah.
liquid. Yeah. And glass. I think yeah, I think that's it. So it's some styrofoam. We take styrofoam as well. But so and then we also have another area where we have we call it like the junk hole, and it's like a free bin where people can donate things like clothes or yeah, like a, you know, electronic, like
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
really that's, and so we see a variety of things. And a misconception I see a lot is people thinking that they're doing enough just by recycling, or taking their new material, like they're like, for example, like we'll get like a new television, but somebody bought another television, so they get rid of it and they think, oh well, you know, I'm okay, well maybe you shouldn't be getting rid of this television, there's nothing wrong with it, so why are you adding more,
To the
you know,
waste.
there's like this
Yeah.
misconception of like, it has to do a lot with American mentality as well, of just buying things new, like buying things, shipping things. And now
Yeah,
it's
the
different because of
consumer
COVID.
culture, I think.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the issue. And I think that's part of the things that I like to educate is, you know, I do want to say like, thank you for recycling, but it's not enough to just recycle. You should also think about, you know, how much waste are you producing? What exactly are you putting out? And that's what I
Yeah,
think is
yeah.
more of the misconception.
Yeah, like I totally agree. We should be more mindful about what we are producing, the waste we are producing, because if we don't produce the extra waste in the first place, we won't need to recycle it. So yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
Oh,
speak, speak.
oh,
No,
I was
you
going to
go.
just say that I was just going to say that, yeah, I think like, for example, things that I'll do is, um, you know, I will use recycle, like reusable bag. I actually just went grocery shopping right before our call. I use recycle like a paper, fabric bag, and
Yeah.
use water bottle, reusable water bottle. Um, yeah, things like that. Like if even the smallest of things, they end up making a difference. Give me one
Yeah.
second though. I need to get some water because
Yeah, it's totally fine.
okay, ready for whenever question.
Yeah. Yeah, so you talked about how you work with like children and like from elementary school to like make them more aware about waste management and stuff. So like uh is there a certain way you like talk to adults too when it comes to recycling or waste management?
Yeah, so definitely the and this is something also I deal with in science as well, is you always need to know your audience and what kind of language will work for them and what kind of ways to communicate to them will actually make a difference. So for example, like in with kids that are in grade school, like elementary school, we'll do more of like very simple exercises, but getting them to know what is non-renewable resource, what is plastic, what's like your carbon footprint,
Yeah.
what is climate change, like things like that, but very basic, very simple things, but doing more like arts and craft kinds of things. Like we'll do like exercise where we they build like a small like box that's like kind of the compact, like a machine for recycling and compacting waste. So we have them design their own and say, well, what non-renewable resource am I going to put in this? And then what's going to come out of it? Just getting them to think of these ideas of like, what are ways I can use plastic in a different way? Or what are ways I can reduce how many plastic bags I use? Things like that. So very simple exercises like this. And then when we go into more like older students, we communicate a bit more in the sense of like, well, what can you do next as you're getting older in your career if you're interested in this? What's the field? So a lot of the time I will talk to, and this is not just high school, it's like middle school. I worked with Girl Scouts in middle school, where I talk to them about being a woman in STEM, in science and things like that. And I talk to them about my research and why my research is important for conserving biodiversity and to enrich understanding of the world and organisms and preserve their existence so they don't go endangered. And we talk to them more about like what's extinction, what are we going on through. We're going through like the next mega extinction period currently, and so we have more of this education way where it's more detailed and more of like what can you do, and inspiring them in that way. Yeah, so there's definitely just like what level of seriousness I think to it. Maybe with children a little bit more less serious, because we want to get them excited about the
Yeah.
recycling, not scared like what's going on, the world is messed up and all this stuff. But then with older students, we're like, okay, you can handle this, you should know the truth about what's really happening to the environment.
Yeah, so like, what do you think changes people's mind when it comes to recycling?
I think some things that I've noticed that I will change people's minds, and even sometimes me too, because I don't always think that, sometimes I'll be very good with reducing my waste and not using a lot of electricity or things like that. But there's times where I need to remind myself, like, how much am I actually using? So, like, we'll just show, for example, like, this is how much an average person, like, if you're consuming like a water bottle a day, if you're consuming a bag of chips, like things like that. In a 1 week, how much waste do you have? So we show them like, this is the amount of waste you're producing, and people get shocked, like, one bag here, one bottle here. Oh, I'm recycling it, no big deal. But then when you see it in this additive way, people really get taken back, like, wow, am I really producing this much waste? That's one thing that I think definitely works a lot. And then also, yeah, just having people knowing more about their carbon footprint and like how much water are you using? How much electricity are you using? How much electricity do you use just to heat your house? Things like that. And
Yeah.
so we give them ways to show like, even and incentive, people and humans want uh like a profit from somewhere. And so in some ways we'll say like, okay, well, if you reduce your heat and you seal your windows better, or you close your door, like things like that, you will save money. And so we do that kind of thing as well with people who are older and adults as well. This more for adults, because adults are very like harder to communicate with because they're stuck with their ways and things like that and are
Yeah.
stubborn. So, and they think no one can, especially a young person, to go up to them and say you're living wrong, essentially, is they take it offensively. So we do it in this way of like, you can save money and like think of, these kinds of things too. It's definitely tactics you have to use to communicate, but it's important to talk to your audience that way, to be specific with your audience.
All right. So you talked about the recycling plant, and like I just want to know how it works. Like what machines are used, and like
She-
like what
Oh, sorry.
machines are used, and how like it is converted into different forms and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we have compactor machines. We have compactor machines for recycle cardboard, plastic bottles. Um, we have the and then we have a compactor as well for aseptic. So everything else ends up being dropped off. So we're a drop-off center, so people will come recycle there, and then uh, they will. Sorry, am I freezing or is it okay?
Yeah, like I could hear your voice, but like your screen froze. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's working well now.
Okay. Yeah, so we have yeah, so people come drop off the recycling, and then we're the facility to take it somewhere else to the, so we use these uh compactors to compact things. So for example, like our cardboard, Kellogg cereal will take the cardboard and recycle it into thinner cardboard for cereal boxes. And then, for example, plastic will end up getting smushed together, melted down, and then reused into recycled labeled plastic. And then, as well as plastic bags, they get shredded and they're turned into fishing line for fishing nets. Um, Aseptic, I believe, goes back to being aseptic. I think they smushed that one, and they try to take as much as they can from it. But then everything else ends up being what happens is, and everything else ends up being smushed apart, and not always recycled, but it's disposed of more properly in a way. So like for example, the electronics, there's not much that can be done with those. So
Yeah,
they end up just being like, if it's salvageable, it might be, but usually it ends up just going and like getting melted down and being into waste again. But so there is that issue. There's not really, there's definitely a lot of improvement that needs to be done. And research hasn't been done on how to improve recycling. It's very limited and old ways. It's not the
yeah.
best ways, but it's something, but it's always an issue.
So like how much does it cost on average?
What does?
Like the whole recycling process, I would say. Your screen, your
Oh,
screen actually froze.
oh, sorry. Can you hear me
It's
now?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So the we have a budget, but the budget goes for a lot of different things. So I'm not necessarily sure because I don't work with the money management of the
Yeah, yeah.
facility, but it's quite costly. Um, so I know that the city budget in the past for the recycling center was about $240,000 a year, but um, this was to fund the teaching program, the Green Living Science. This was to fund. We had something else called Green Safe Products, where we used biodegradable. We created bio. It was a shipping facility for biodegradable, like plastic, like silverware for like catering and for takeout foods and stuff like that. So that was like a facility. So they had to fund the trucks to ship this out into the city. But that's not, they're not in the facility anymore. And then also, yeah, to pay the employees as well as to pay people who drop off and the trucks and things like that. So there's a lot of money that goes into it. I'm not sure exactly how much goes to the recycling segment, but it is something that needs to be funded by, it doesn't need to be, but it would make it easier to get it started to be funding by some type of governmental thing.
Government. Yeah.
Yeah. Or getting a big grant is something that you can do as well. So something honestly, I think is interesting, that since you like science and you seem to like to work with the microplastics and things like that, is there's a lot of research being done on different mushrooms and mycelium that break down plastics and break down different things. And that's actually something that I talked to with a friend of mine, and she knows a little bit more about it with she's trying to figure out how to use mushrooms that grow on rubber trees, to facilitate them to degrade to decompose rubber, like processed rubber. She's still like, she's more of like a at home scientist kind of thing, but she's been working and developing this. But these are the kinds of the ideas we need to branch out more, like how can we use
Yeah.
what we know to biodegrade things better.
Yeah, I actually haven't researched a lot like what you talked about. I haven't heard about it, but yeah, I actually read about someone who made like cards with the the like the coconut, and it has those hairy parts which are like not edible and all. So he made like a lot of cards from that. So it like it reduce, like if we continue using that, deforestation could be reduced a lot. And I have been actually reading about different ways we could like convert plastic into different forms. So yeah, I definitely need to read more about the mushroom thing you talked about.
Yeah, I think it's the mushrooms are there. It's, I know they're very particular, but there is this way of looking at how decomposers can decompose these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, where I live in Gainesville, Florida, we have like plastic straws are banned. And that's another thing I'll go back to. But so we have paper straws. They're not great, but it's okay. But sometimes we have like hay, like the straw kind of, like the tree, the hay
Yeah, yeah.
straw kind of thing. So it's hollowed out, and then that's used as straws. It's really good. Things like that. But that's one thing also is, there's this new idea of, reducing straws and use metal straws. And I have my own metal straws and things like that. But that's not it. You see, that's the thing, is that I think there's these trends that happen, but you're not getting the big picture. It's okay, yes,
Yeah.
straws are small and they're producing plastic and animals can eat them. But think about how much your plastic bag that you just went grocery
Yeah.
shopping has, and your water bottles. Like, these are the things. Then you see somebody with a straw in like a plastic cup, and it's like you're defeating the purpose. And that's the thing too, is this misconception of educating, because I think
Yeah,
people really
like
think they're doing enough.
yeah, like we need to focus more on the bigger problem instead of like the smaller parts which are like really small as compared to the whole problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kelsey actually told me about how you like to like create stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like can you tell me a little more about how you like use, I wouldn't call them waste, but basically stuff that are not, that can be thrown away, but you use them in a better way.
Yeah. So I call it found material,
Yeah.
repurposed material, things like that. Um, so some things that I do, I think I told you, like the junk hole, the area where we have the people donating things. Mainly, I always take from their material. So things like paper, I'll never buy new. I just will take recycled paper. So there's things that I can do. You can make, you can turn paper into this pulp, like shred it, pulp it with
Yeah, yeah.
water and glue, and so
And
I make things.
recycle it.
Yeah, so I make things out of that. I always use glass jars and colored glass for mosaics, things like that. Um, Recycled material, essentially like that. Cut pieces of metal to create um, like textures and shapes, and also I'll use like chicken wire to make the basis for sculptures, or those metal clothes hangers, I'll bend them and use that instead of buying new wire, things like that. I'll find other ways to do that. So I do things like that. And I also, there's another area called another place called Arts and Scraps,
Mhm.
which also, if you're interested in communicating with them, I'm good friends with the manager of Arts and Scraps. And so Arts and Scraps is a facility where people donate art, scrap material, so fabrics, like anything. There's tons of things, shells, beads, like anything that's somebody wants to throw away. People bring to Arts and Scraps, and my friend Stevie runs it. And my friend Stevie, they will basically people come and purchase a bag of or like it's like you can fill a huge bag for $5 of material, and that money all goes to helping keep the facility running. So it's also nonprofit, and it's also funding activities for kids to learn about using recycled material, found material, things like that. So for example, I will go buy material from there first. I'll never go first to like art store or something like that. I'll go see first what's there, and then last option, if I really need something like paint or a new paintbrush or something, I'll go somewhere, but it's always the last resort.
Yeah, that is a really good initiative. Like, yeah, I think it is a really good idea because, like, I am I am a very artistic person too, and like I really, I end up going to the stationery shop once every week almost. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I think if there was something like this here, people could really make use of that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you know people who also care about what you're doing and what you're interested in, maybe start like a small group of, okay, I want to get rid of this, you want to get rid of this, we can trade things, and that's like, it's really nice to do that, and then it will get bigger, I think. And that's how really it started
Yeah,
with the recycling center and with Arts and Scraps. Was it's one thing that caught on to more and more and more people, and it became more of like a community center kind of thing, where it's like people fundamentally, why the recycling center works really great is because people come, they have a good experience, we make recycling fun. We have like, the facility is not just like a ugly warehouse. There's paintings on the walls and art hanging, and we do it like this to make it more creative and interesting and cool, and so that people want to come, because we're telling people essentially like, drive your trash or bike your trash to us and drop it off. And that's not always the most appealing thing, but then we see people weekly coming in, every week, every 2 days, things like that, and always bringing in small things, even just like one box they want to bring, but they love coming so much that they will do that. And so I think that that's the best way, is to create it more of a community way, and more of a trading way of things, and it will catch on, I think, if you, especially if you want for your arts and things like that.
yeah, I was actually thinking about that. I have a few like friends who are really into art, and they po- they post paintings and everything regularly. So I was just thinking about that maybe I could talk to them and we make a small group or something.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, for example, like also with painting with canvas, you can I mean, if you want to make your own frame, you can use repurposed wood. I always get repurposed wood, or the scrap wood from hardware stores and things like that, that they throw away. I take that sometimes. So I find wood, like maybe somebody throwing away a fence and that they tore down, and I take pieces of wood like that. So I always am driving around and throwing things that people throw away in my car, because I do think there's such great material. You save money and it makes you more creative too,
Yeah.
to use the material instead of saying, I want this and I'm going to go buy it at the store. Well, okay, I'm not going to just buy it right away. Let's see what I can find, and maybe it will change my idea or make it different a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, I do that too. We actually had some woodwork done at our house recently, and there was a lot of like waste wood left. So I could like look at those like wooden pieces and see what I could do all with like some of the pieces. So I kept them and I still have them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So like so if you had a magic wand, so like if you what does your ideal world look like when it comes to like recycling, waste management, people caring about these things and stuff?
If I had a magic wand, there would be a lot of things I would do, but especially I would make it so um, all plastic is essentially banned. That's not reused, because there's so much plastic already in waste that we can reuse it all now at this
Yeah.
point and reprocess it. It makes the material not as sturdy. So that's why, but there is enough to work with it. So I would do that, and I would also just have people be more caring of climate change issues, of what's going on, and have people, because I think actually this would be my final answer, is to make humans not focus so much on humans, because the problem we have is if it's not human oriented, people don't care. So at the end of the day, they say, well, why do I care about climate change? It's not real, first of all. Well, why not? There's science, there's facts. I'm not sure why you don't see this, but okay. But because it's also, they don't want to change their own practices. And so there's just this selfishness, I think, when it comes to the environment. And I get it a lot too when I'm researching. I have somebody ask me, like, why are you studying? Like, I study, for example, crayfish. Do you know them? Crawfish, they're eaten sometimes. They look like shrimp, but they're freshwater. Okay. I'll try to find a picture for you. But so
It's okay, I'll find it.
okay, yeah, look up crayfish. You'll find it. You'll know what it is. But so I work with them because they're very important in streams and in rivers and wetlands, and ponds and things like that, all freshwater. And they decompose materials and things like that, and they make it so there's enough oxygen levels in the water, because everything is very.
Your screen froze again.
It's okay. Is it better here? I might move
Yeah,
closer a little
it's
to my router. Okay.
better now.
Okay. So yeah, so this one organism has a lot to do with how much oxygen levels in the water, because leaves fall into the water, it creates less oxygen, and the eating and the feeding behavior of the crayfish will affect the environment completely. So there's a lot of this integration, even in this very small organism that seems meaningless to people. So when I talk to people about, oh, I study crayfish, I always get like, oh, okay, that's cool. Or what's the point? Like, why are you doing this? And it's like, well, what do you mean? Because I'm studying more about the environment, and I'm looking at why we can have all this life in water and oxygen and things like that. And I get this disconnect a lot of the time of like, well, it's not about humans, so why do you care? It's more of like
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
yeah. And so that's the thing. I think I wish I could change the mentality of people, of not of seeing life in a different way, and seeing it as life, and that we're part of it, the system, not outside of the world.
Yeah, like right now when you were talking about the crayfish, I just looked it up actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I remember my teacher telling me about lichens, and basically they only grow in places which are pollution free. I feel like we can even research more about it and see like look at I think like look at how the place where these things grow work. Like maybe there's a place where there's no pollution, so it's growing. So we can look at how things are working in that place and implement a little bit of it here.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something that's called using bioindicator. So if you want to read more about doing that, look up monitoring or bioindicator. So in freshwater streams, for example, we look at three kinds of invertebrate species. So they're insect larvae, and they're mayflies, stoneflies, and dragonflies. And so what we do is we look at, because they need good water quality, they can't
Mm,
survive if there's low oxygen or a lot of pollution or chemicals, because a lot of them have their gills and their breathing apparatus outside of the body, and they're very, very fragile and sensitive. So what we do is in stream habitats, we will sample in the areas where we know they will be, and we count how many kinds of species we find, what's the percentage out of all of the invertebrates and insects we found in the water, and things like that. And so that gives you a lot on information on, well, what's the water quality? And so that's something that's really commonly done, especially in freshwater systems. I'm not as familiar with land systems, but I work mainly in freshwater. So uh,
yeah.
definitely look into biomonitoring and bioindicating. I'm actually working on a paper right now, and once I finish it, I can send it to you. But it's I'm trying to do a publication from an old research project I did where we looked at they're called water mites, and there's they look like spiders essentially, tiny ones, and they live in the water and they have high biodiversity. And so we're trying to also prove how um, looking at water mites as well can be used as good for bioindicators, because a lot of the time people stick to one practice and that's the only thing, and it's always a need for more knowledge and advancements.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I am actually really interested in that paper. So like
Yeah. Yeah,
can you give yeah.
I was going to say I would love to stay in contact with you. This doesn't have to be just one time thing. So if you have, do you have my email from the invite? That's my university email. I check it all the time. So always contact me or send me
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
interesting or questions. I'd love to continue talking, because I don't, yeah, I think this is something that needs to be, getting passionate people
Mm.
is the start, and really it's the way to change the world, is to get new
Yeah.
generation to care.
Yeah, like I never really studied more on like how the water bodies work and how the like food chain and the ecosystem in the water work, the but the things you are talking about, they are really interesting me. So maybe I'll learn more about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. One thing also that is new and not known and well known about is in freshwater systems, we have high rates of pharmaceuticals, contaminants because of wastewater. So from people's prescriptions and things like that, we find that if wastewater plants are not processed properly, we have high levels of these types of medications, and they actually have really bad effects on organisms. So, for example, like with crayfish, my professor, she did a research experiment project on how antidepressants at different levels can affect the behavior of crayfish, and it creates them to not eat, and they starve, and they also will have messed up behavior, which doesn't just affect the species, but like I said, it affects the decomposition and the oxygen and all of these other bigger things. And so there's a lot of issues in the environment, and that's just another one to add to the list. But it's important to just have people to keep studying these things and to not just study them, but to implement them as well, because
Yeah.
there is really a lack between science, policy, and the public. It's
Yeah,
difficult to connect.
I think I'll stop recording now.
Okay.